Welcome everyone. It is with immense pleasure that I, Neeraj Bunkar, organizer of this festival, welcome you all to the concluding session of the online Dalit Film Festival. This festival has been a platform to showcase powerful stories that explore the themes of Dalit identity, caste realities, and the fight for social justice in India. Over the past few days, we have been captivated by the creativity and courage of Dalit filmmakers. We have witnessed stories that challenged perspectives, ignited conversation, and inspired actions. Today, as we embark on this final session, our focus shifts to the future. Our esteemed panel today comprises four prominent scholars. Unfortunately, one of the panel speaker, Rajesh Rajamani, will not be able to join us today due to some medical emergency. So our first speaker would be Haris Wankhede, is an assistant professor at the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He was visiting scholar at the Center for South Asia, Stanford University, California, USA. He was awarded a PhD from the CPS JNU in the year 2015. Wankhede has published research articles on the topics of caste, Dalit movement, Hindutva, and social justice in major national and international journals. He is also a keen cinema enthusiast and writes regular columns in national dailies on Indian politics, pop literature, Bollywood, and media culture. His first book on the Dalit representation in Hindi cinema is forthcoming. Our second speaker, Dr. Amit Kumar, is an assistant professor at the Amity University, Lucknow. He was awarded with a PhD from the School of International Relations, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Dr. Amit Kumar has taught political science to undergraduate students at various universities in India. He has published research articles and presented research papers at various international and national platforms. He has also been awarded a Charles Wallace Research Grant. His research interests include the Dalit questions in Hindi cinema, multiculturalism, and Dalit identity politics. And our final speaker, Dr. Manju Edachira, is a cultural theorist, comparatist, and she is also a Madeline Haas Russell postdoctoral fellow in critical caste studies at Brandeis University. Prior to this, she was a postdoctoral fellow at the International Center of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, 2023 to 2024, and HSS IIT Delhi from 2021 to 2023. She was also a Kerala Chalchitra Academy Fellow from 2020 to 2021 and Erasmus visiting PhD Fellow in the Film Studies Division at Freie University Berlin 2016. Her PhD at the University of Hyderabad 2020 dissertation titled Affective Archives Studied Caste and Contemporary Malayalam Cinema. She has published widely and given lectures in the areas of film and cultural studies, anti-caste aesthetics, critical caste studies, affect studies, South Asian popular culture, and Kerala studies. So their insight will be valuable as we delve into the topic of the present and future of Dalit or anti-caste themed films in India. Through this conversation, we will also, that aim to explore the impact of Dalit films in shaping the social discourse on caste in India, and also the challenges and opportunities faced by Dalit filmmakers in Indian film industry, and also the potential of cinema to drive social change and empower marginalized community. So now, without further ado, let's open the floor to our esteemed panelists and embark on this thought-provoking discussion. So to start this discussion, I just want to pose a questions about to all the panelists about the theme of this panel discussion. While deciding on this topic for this panel discussion, I was confused and basically grappled with the whether to use the term Dalit or anti-caste. So in the end, I chose to include both, but the doubt remains, and I would like everybody to discuss about this. And then the confusion mainly arises because both the terms Dalit or the anti-caste themes has some sort of as from my own understanding the overlapping connotations. Like Dalit theme films certainly have that inherently elements of anti-caste assertion, while anti-caste themed, of course, challenges anti-caste film, of course, challenges the films that the caste-based society. So the first question, like basically about the what do you think about this genre, particular genre about the anti-caste film or the Dalit cinema, And as we have also known that there are few scholars who has the advocated for the recognition of Dalit cinema as a prominent genre akin to black cinema. So what are your thoughts on this idea, and why this Dalit cinema and not the anti-caste cinema or any other terminology for this? So yeah, although there are two, three questions, but I would love to that hear from you, all of you. So anybody can that start this discussion and initiate here.
Shall I?
Yes, definitely.
You. Neeraj, revolutionary greetings. Very warm Jai Bhim to all of you who are present here and the listeners. And of course, it's a great opportunity to see Manju, Amit, Alex, and of course, as I said, that this initiative, what you did, the Dalit Online Film Festival, I think is a fascinating thing. And many congratulations to you for organizing and curating this festival. Why? Because for a very long time, I think this idea that there should be a Dalit cinema or a Dalit genre. From last one decade, I believe that this initiation has started, and we are now thinking that we have something to organize and think about that, which we call a Dalit genre or a Dalit cinema. And therefore, it is a kind of a very apt time to think on these lines. And what you just posed to start with, that whether it should be seen as an anti-caste cinema or a Dalit cinema. I think this discussion on the nomenclature is as long as, like, even during Ambedkar's time, I think this discussion was very much there, that what name or nomenclature or a symbol that is required to deal with the new assertion or resistance movement that has come across. And Dalit, of course, Ambedkar was not very kind to this particular term, and he used multiple other symbols and ideas and identities to reflect upon the Dalit question. But probably in 70s, with the arrival of the Panthers, I think it has become a synonymous for resistance movement and what they call social change or political change. So Dalit is, of course, in the sociological terms, often been connected or are associated with the scheduled caste, mainly the ex-untouchable caste in India. But if you see the philosophical terrain of that particular term, the ideological rigor or the radical voices of this term, it is always anti-caste. It was always meant for what you call resistance, you call it social change, or a kind of a political emancipation of certain marginalized social groups. It is mainly associated with that, and therefore it has that kind of a very deep radical political element into that. Which is, of course, there is also an anti-caste movement. But when you call it a Dalit cinema, we know that the flag bearers have a specific, very significant identity, which is, of course, the untouchable identity, and it has that kind of a revolutionary flavor into that. That they are the first people to resist the caste hegemony and control, and they have had this kind of a bigger idealistic imagination about a humanitarian world, and therefore annihilation of caste will be the prime target of this particular group. And therefore Dalit is a revolutionary symbol of resistance, and the players, the main upholders of that identity is, of course, the ex-untouchables, but it is open for all, and it can emerge, it has emerged as a revolutionary identity, and therefore anti-caste is kind of intrinsic or part of the Dalit resistance, the identity. And therefore, if you call it anti-caste or call it Dalit, I think is a synonymous to each other, and there is not much difference between the two. And therefore, when you ask this, I think it was important that calling a film festival, Dalit online film festival, is crucial. Why? Because there is a kind of a new trajectory that we are all are witnessing now. That trajectory is distinct from what we have seen in last probably 75 years of cinema, which is, of course, about the arrival of an independent resistance, social change based cinema articulation, which was not there for a very, very long time. And therefore, this growing presence of what you call Dalit cinema makers, mainly in three major states now, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and in Hindi. People like Paranjit, Vetrimaran, and Mari Selvaraj in Tamil Nadu, for that matter, they are doing extraordinary work in cinema. The kind of cinema that they are coming up with is it's not just political, but the narrative style, the music, the symbolism that they are using in their films is extraordinary, and therefore it is not only about that there is some kind of a caste element into that film, but also an artistic expression, the way they are expressing and the way they are narrating their stories and the way they are presenting the narrative on screen. I think there is extremely new form of creative abilities that Vetimaran or Mari Selvaraj or of course Paranjit are showing, and they are setting that kind of a discourse that Dalit cinema is not about what you call the painful experiences of the ex-untouchables, but they're more than that. It is about the politics, about their aesthetics, about their vision, about their humanity. And therefore, probably what Tamil cinema is doing with cinema today, I think extraordinary. And therefore, similar in Maharashtra, Sailesh Narwade's Jayanti or Nagaraj Manjule's Pandri and Sairat, and later on many other significant films that he has produced and directed. I think that is also kind of setting an idea that cinema has a very deep social responsibility. Similarly, in Hindi, directors like Milind Uke or Neeraj Ghaiwan, the kind of cinema that they are coming up with, I think these three industries are setting up a objective that somewhere cinema requires new what they call a Dalit universe, almost like a Marvel universe, that they are all connected in similar way. There are characters and protagonists which have similar ideas and identities, and they have a vision to change the world. And their narratives have also some kind of a parallel universe, that they are not distinct from each other. So somewhere though Sairat and Madras looks distinct regionally and language wise, but there is some kind of a connectivity between the two films, and they are talking to each other. So that kind of a larger Dalit universe is now approaching, and it is not only India centric, but again, like for that matter, the Eva Duvernay's new film Origin, it has that kind of an international audience, and there is also the question to examine the idea of exploitation and marginalization. So we are now in that kind of a frame where there is an arrival of what you call a Dalit universe, where there are similar stories, narratives, protagonists, and ideas which are now parallelly moving and speaking to each other. That is a kind of a great churning that we are now experiencing in Indian cinema, and these three filmmakers are extremely doing fantastic job in building that kind of a discourse. And therefore, this cinema is, as I said, not just about what we call a change maker in the normal narrative of the cinema, or for its commercial success, like Sairat was a big success in Marathi, or Kala or Kabali was a great commercially successful films. But it is not only to create that kind of a distinction that Dalit filmmakers are doing, but probably these filmmakers are also suggesting about what they call art for social change. That cinema for a very very long time was not seen as an artistic expression. It was majorly seen as a popular enterprise, mainly for the commercial purpose. And this cinema, Dalit cinema, is now bringing back the idea of a responsibility, that artists have a political, social, cultural responsibility towards art medium, and cinema has that kind of a capacity and courage to build that kind of a mega idea that filmmakers can bring social change. And therefore, Dalit cinema is about that kind of a radical art, that it has that kind of a radical element into that. It is political in its core, and somewhere wanted to bring some kind of a psychological change amongst their audience, which was for that very long time cinema was not inclined to do. Cinema was mainly about what they call entertainment, its commercial logic, and that kind of a surreal experience that cinema audience will get out of in that cinema hall. But probably the Dalit cinema is surely not about that. surely not about what they call a pulp fiction or entertainment without any logic, or even for that matter, its commercial angle. Dalit cinema is mainly about political education. It is about that radical narratives that is required for a good audience, and cinema's role as a educator. I think Dalit cinema is doing that job, and therefore, more than what earlier cinemas have done. Like, of course, there were time was what we call a parallel cinema, which has this kind of a educational access, but it was had that kind of a documentary kind of a realism. But probably Sairat and Kabali again not doing that. That they are not documentaries. They are not a kind of a graphic presentation of social and cultural reality, but they are exploring that Dalit protagonists or characters are human, and they have their own stories to narrate, and they can dance and they can sing and they can do poetry, and they can just behave like a normal human on screen. So that distinction is very much important, and probably Dalit cinema is doing that kind of a change, that bringing that kind of a change in the current narratives. Uh, Now let me speak a little bit about the Hindi cinema. Of course, as I said, that it has that kind of a universal and a larger internationalist approach, but probably Hindi cinema in last 10 years, I believe, has come up with what they call a Dalit protagonist. For a very long time, those who have read any small history about caste and cinema, and mainly about Hindi cinema, we all know that pre-independence, there were films on caste, on untouchability, on questions of Brahmanical hegemony and control, like film like Chandidas or Achut Kanya, or many multiple films are of that part where which can suggest that there was a space where caste and issues of untouchability can be examined. But for a very long time, I believe that there was a neglect, there was an erasure, there was no direct engagement with caste, and particularly the questions of the untouchables, mainly the Dalit question. And basically, the Hindi cinema was building its empire in a city called Bombay. Earlier Bombay, now Mumbai, and that is also a city where the Dalit movement was very powerful. Of course, that was the place where Ambedkar started his political social career and built a political party, social organization, working class movement in that city. And you will find that that city is not even engaging with Ambedkar on its real base. And therefore, that kind of a problem that we have seen, like further for that matter, the very popular time of the Hindi cinema, mainly 50s and 60s, what they called the golden age of Hindi cinema, where the cinema was engaging with what they call socialist, nationalist, Nehruvian ideas. And building a cinema which is about social and political change, like Bimal Roy's film called Do Bigha Zameen, a very wonderful film with that kind of a socialist imprint, wanted to examine what the urban world is doing with the idea of the rural poor, and kind of a changing a narrative on Mother India for that matter, Bimal Roy's film. So there were these very fascinating directors and producers who call themselves part of the leftist, socialist, Marxist circle, engaging with the Nehruvian idea of nation building. Mainly Raj Kapoor or even Guru Dutt or Bimal Roy and many other fascinating filmmakers of that part of time, which are now engaged with the idea of urban poverty, working classes, migrant laborers, like for that one, Awara or She 420, Raj Kapoor's, both these films are mainly about a migrant worker. But you will find that though they are speaking about working classes, about migrant laborers, about the precarity of the urban times, but they are not talking at all about the caste question. In the golden age of what they call Hindi cinema, you'll find that the idea of caste and untouchability is almost absent. Almost like that in urban space, the caste or the untouchability quotient doesn't arrive. And Ambedkar, as I said, that Ambedkar was present in that city when these films were made. He was building movements and suggesting the left that the working class also have this caste dynamics, and you need to engage with that. And if you read the socialist and the Marxist literature of that time in Mumbai, you'll find that the socialists and the Marxists were deeply engaging with the social questions also at that point. But when it comes to cinema, though they claim that they are socialist and the Marxist and part of the larger progressive era of filmmaking, they hesitate to engage with the caste question. The only one film which one can suggest that this is a prominent case of how progressive filmmakers were engaged with caste question is, of course, Bimal Roy's Sujata. But apart from that one film, you will not find that cinema makers are deeply interested in building any sensitive connectivity with the caste or the untouchable question. The second part is crucial, where the Marxist or the socialist filmmakers or what they call the leftist filmmakers again entered into a filmmaking process, mainly what they call the parallel art house cinema of 70s and 80s, when again the issues of marginality, poverty, working class, urbanization come up in a bigger way in that sphere. Filmmakers like Sham Benegal or Govind Dhilani or Prakash Jha or multiple. There are so many big names in that loop. But again, you will find that though in this particular sphere, there is an arrival of a caste question. Like I recently wrote a piece on Manthan, where there was a very deep analysis of how in rural society the caste distinctions were there, and they were hierarchical, they were unequal, and the Dalit faced the most burnt out of that. So Manthan became one such example. So you'll find that somewhere the parallel cinema take this kind of a clue that caste question and dealing with the caste and untouchable issue is important. And therefore, we have film like Sadgati, Satyajit Ray's film, or Par, Gautam Ghosh's very fascinating film, or Ankur for that matter, or Damul, Gid, Nishant. So there are series of film in art house cinema which are basically suggesting that the Dalits are extremely precarious in their social location. They are poorest of the poor. They are helpless. They do not have any agentship in dealing with their social and political concern, and they are therefore powerless and almost vulnerable. So that stereotype is very much presented in that cinema of parallel art house cinema. But again, as I said, that there are slippage of this is that even if they are now making these films in Bombay also witnessing another arrival of a very significant political movement called Dalit Panthers. The arrival of the literature in Maharashtra and Mumbai for that matter. So you'll find that though there were significant arrival of a Dalit consciousness in the public spaces, intellectual spaces, political spaces like Panthers, as I said, you'll find that the cognizance of this arrival of a agentship of the Dalits, that they are now capable and can bring voice to their problems and can lead their own battles by their own, and they are agents of their own revolution, as Panthers and the literature was showcasing. You'll find that there was no articulation or engagement with this Dalit agentship, which was arriving in 70s and 80s. Like for that matter, the BAMSEF was created in 70s. BSP was established in 1984. So though there were political and social and cultural movements where Dalit are showcasing their independence and power and caliber that they can raise their voices, in parallel cinema, you'll find that no such agent is available. They are mostly stereotypes as poor, precarious, or what they call powerless. And therefore, though it is an important part of the Hindi cinema history where caste and the untouchable quotient emerged as a significant factor, but it was limited. It was stereotypical. It has that kind of a larger what you call savior complex of the upper caste film directors that they wanted to showcase the Dalits in a very, very peculiar and stereotypical manner. And therefore, probably though both the models, the golden age of cinema and the parallel cinema, was dominated not by the mainstream commercial filmmakers but intellectuals. These people were intellectuals. They hyped themselves that they are part of the socialist, Marxist, nationalist film making, and they're intellectuals. So these, even in this intellectual domain, these two major intellectual domains of Hindi cinema, you'll find that the Dalit question is either neglected, erased, or even if it is present on screen, it is stereotypical and not giving enough agency to the Dalit protagonist. And therefore, both the models were problematic. And therefore, the third model, which is now the emerging model, where the Dalit filmmakers are now taking up the call and discussing and deciding that the Dalit protagonist will not be just a precarious, but a human, but a normal human being with same desires and aspirations, like the Sarpata Parambara's protagonist in Paranjit's film. Therefore, the Dalit cinema is doing extraordinary in this league, that they are not just building an alternative cinema, but they are also challenging the complete narrative. And therefore, this idea that there is something called an arrival of a Dalit cinema or Dalit genre is a very, very positive step, and I think we all need to cherish and celebrate that. This is a genre which has the possibility to democratize Indian cinema. It can only compare to the earlier age when there was no representation and absent of the Dalit case. So compared to that, the current cinema, where across multiple language cinemas, there is an arrival of a Dalit protagonist. There are films which are around the Dalit narrative and Dalit case, and also there are filmmakers who can take up a call and build a narrative which is extraordinary and super. And therefore, this is a better time for all of us. The only possibility is that it should not restrict only at the level of representation, but there is a film industry. So the other part is, of course, the part of distribution, filmmaking, exhibition. And in that part, I think the industry is still hegemonized by the social elites, and there are still not enough space for most of the filmmakers and the distributors to enter. So apart from the representation, I believe that the other arena of the filmmaking, distribution, marketing, exhibition, I think there is also a requirement of democratization. But this is a great time that we have filmmakers like Paranjit and Nagaraj Manjule. We are discussing their films. It's a positive time, and there is a hope that a better democratization of film industry will take place very soon. With that, I think I need to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aris, for such an overview of the historicity of Indian cinema, and then how Dalit themed films started coming to the mainstream filmmaking process as well. And although I wanted to ask about the historicity of the film, but you have already covered most of the points. So I would just want to go back to our two speaker, whether they want to speak something about the genre itself, like Dani Silma or Anti-Caste. Then I will move to the another question. Yeah, yeah, Manju. Yeah, you can.
You're mute, Manju, I believe. We cannot hear you.
Manju, I think is problem with your headphone. Maybe you can join directly through your computer audio. No, we can't hear, but I think let's come to Amit then. So by then time you can also resolve the problem with the audio. So Amit, can you just elaborate on what Haris has to say about the genre itself?
Thank you, Neeraj, to the organizer for organizing such a great event, online Dalit Film Festival, where you started with showcasing the different genre of films, inviting the speakers, the filmmakers. So it's more like a blend of both scholarly engagement and the people who are working on the field, who have the insight how the cinema actually works. They also contributing to the discussion. It's a very wonderful thing, and thank you for inviting me on such huge platform. So most of the thing I think Hari sir have covered. He has great knowledge about the Hindi cinema and other cinema. So I'll add the Dalit, as you have like posed the question, how the we see the Dalit it as a anti-caste cinema or like the Dalit cinema. Dalit itself is a category, is a social and political category, which has is more like the anti-caste subjectivity, and uh, it has the element of the anti-caste. So you can't segregate the both the terms. Both the terms are eh, uh, intertwined with each other, and both are the like synonymous with each other. And yeah, definitely there was a exclusion and the like hegemony of the upper elite, social elites in the Hindi and the regional cinema, and the new wave of the Dalit cinema are coming, and people from from Tamil cinema, Mari Selvaraj, Vetri Maran, Paranjit, and from Marathi cinema, this Nagraj Manjule, and Hindi cinema, this Neeraj Ghewan are coming with up their own narratives and telling the story, and like seeing the world which was whole neglected in the more than 100 years of journey of the Indian cinema. So I'll begin with there is a quote of by Stuart Hall: "The expropriation of cultural identity cripples and deform. If its silence are not resisted, they produce infinite vivid space, individual without an anchor, without horizon, colorless, stateless, rootless, a race of angels." So from this quote, we can understand how like the assertion, how the resistance is much important, or like important in society, and cinema can play an important role in democratizing the social and the political sphere. But the question arises how we can like fix this problem, because if we see the kind of a sensitivity is paid to the question of caste in Tamil cinema, in the Marathi cinema, similar kind of a things is not paid to Hindi cinema. So there is a difference. If you see there is a movie called the Sarat, when it's remade in the Punjabi, it's lose its sense, the kind of a sensitivity with which the Nagra Manjari have dealt the question of caste. In a similar way, you couldn't find in the Yash Raj film, in the Karan Johar movies, even in the Punjabi movies, in a similar way, because there are different kinds of remakes are made on this movie of Sarat. So what I believe that for the screen representation, it is very much important how we can democratize the behind the screen. So my point is how we can democratize. We have to learn something, many things from the US cinema industry, and how the US cinema industry is democratizing these spaces. How the Oscar so white movement, how the director like Spike Lee, Jordan Peele have made the wonderful movies like Malcolm X, and so many other movies. And in the recent times, in the sir was also talking about the Marvel universe. In Marvel universe, we get a Black Panther, which was like commercially critically acclaimed, and most of the people involved in the acting, the production, the screening, most of the people belonging from the this Black Afro-American community, which is like very much important. If we see the aesthetics of Nagraj Manjule, we see that he used the characters like coming from the rural background in his movie. Like if we talk about the Fendry, if we talk about the Sarat, we could see they are immature actor and trained by this filmmaker. And if you see the movies of Par and Jade, you would find he uses the big names. Like the success of the Kabali would not have been possible if the Rajnikant could have been replaced with any XYZ actor. What I believe, because and he is like using like the his aesthetic is different. Aesthetics of Nagraj Manjule is different, but I believe there is a sociologist called Nancy Wang Yun, and she talks about how the representation question of the people of color can be addressed in the in Hollywood. And she talks about the how the institutions can play a role. If we talked about, we have government institutions like NDFC, NS, the National School of Drama, FTII, they can play an instrumental role in producing the Dalit writers, Dalit filmmakers. They give them professional training, and after the completion of the work, the agencies like NDFC can fund their movies. When we have diversity in the terms of like filmmakers, the writers, then only we can get the subject which is deal the question of caste with more sensitivity. If the people from the social elite background are making the films, because their perspective is like quite different, because India is a segregated society, and we don't there is a segregation even in cities, in villages. We don't have the direct interaction, and what we know about the other person, the marginalized community, the Muslims or the other, we know from cinema, because like cinema has a like instrument, because audio visual things are there. So I believe that institutions, there should be a democratization of institution. The affirmative kind of action should be extended to cinema, and we should know the how the composition of the big studios like the YRF and the big because these kinds of things are implemented in USA, and they got the good results. Um, and there are many actors like Spike Lee. They started a campaign, Oscar so white, and it questioned the representation of the academy judges, and they come to the conclusion, and it is dominated by the 90% of the people from the white community. And you can see, if they are the judges and the people who are deciding who could get the recognition is belonging from one community, how can you expect the diversity in the recognition as well? So these kinds of questions should be dealt. Audience can also like play an important role, because like if we promote we go the movie in huge number, if we start campaigns, if something is a problematic in the movie, if we start campaign from Twitter to organizing protests to anything, so then we can bring some change. I think we should learn from the diversity model which is implemented by the USA in the Hollywood cinema industry, like by year and year from 2014, they are providing this diversity report from 2000 UCLA. And then from there, we got to know we have the quantitative data. How many actors are there? How many black actors are there? How many females are there? How many Latinos are there? How many Asian and other are there? So we don't have any kind of a data. We don't have any kind of a research institute which particularly talked about because at present, at this juncture, we are only concerned about the screen representation, which is directly related to the behind the screen. So I see a major correlation between these. The behind the screen diversity is not changing, then the screen diversity is not going to change. We are getting such popular and good number of movies just because the people from the marginalized community like Paranjit, Vetriman, Maran, Neeraj Khawan, they are taking the initiative. So I think institutions, actor of colors, audience, and everyone, and the protest and movement can bring the change, and we could see the changes which is in Tamil cinema in the coming year. Definitely, if these kinds of a question we raise before the government, then things would be better. I
Definitely,
think
definitely. We will discuss this in much detail when we talk about the regional cinema and the other aspect of the, the challenges that the Dalit filmmaker face, and the what kind of strategy that we can employ for more diversified cinema making as well. But before we just want to, that would love to hear from Manju. Manju, yeah.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes, now you are.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Harish and Amit, for that, for giving a larger picture on Dalit cinema. So before going to the discussion, I would like to congratulate Neeraj for putting this very interesting films together and bringing a lot of discussion around that. So thank you so much for that, and also thanks for having me here. And also thanks to Nicole and Judith for having this conversations taken forward. Just to start off with what Harish spoke about, the larger picture on what is Dalit cinema, and in like the overlapping case of anti-caste cinema, and what Amit was talking about, the relationship with Black cinema. So I would maybe like take some of it and have a slightly different take on these questions. So firstly, it is about the idea of Dalit Film Festival. It's quite interesting. It is actually necessary, as Harish was talking right now. So it is important to talk about this categorization or the nomenclature at once, but at the other time we also have to talk about what is anti-caste. And so the question, it's not a very straightforward question, because it is, I mean, also answer in that sense, because it is quite complicated. Because when we talk about Dalit Film Festival, or the category of Dalit, or anti-caste, so one of the things which we have to think of is that, like, this is a moment, there are so many Dalit filmmakers in India right now. But my question, like, or something which we all have to think about, what do we mean by when we say Dalit Film Festival? Is it Dalit themed films, or is it films which are made by Dalit filmmakers, or is it it is more about the what Harish was talking about, the distribution, the technician, or multiple the members, like, who are present in the making of that particular film. So that is something very important for me, because we always talk about the questions on representation, because something on, like, lives of Dalits would suddenly become a Dalit film, Dalit cinema, which could be also made by somebody else, and it could be more about something about their pain, suffering, not necessarily about assertions or resistance, which we are seeing from a different take, is something which we see from uh, Paranjit, or Mari Selvaraj and others. So that is a different take we are seeing. So that is one question which I want to think about. What do we mean by that? Second question is about the question of anti-caste cinema. So anti-caste is about how do we actually talk back, or give a or have a resistance, or have a response to the earlier set of the filmmaking which is available to us, or the content, or the narrative, or the music, everything about, like, aesthetics and different kinds of artistic expression which we have, which are there already, and how do we actually resist that one. So that is so it is at once it's overlapping, but then how do we actually define these terms, or it becomes a little complicated, because then what do we mean by anti-caste, or mean by Dalit? Of course, the idea of Dalit, then it becomes, it's I believe that it is not necessarily in its literal meaning, but something which is emancipatory in itself. What is to be a Dalit? It's at once you are you are transcending the transcending the impositions which are on you, and going towards an emancipatory going towards emancipatory ideals. So that is something which we are looking forward. But there is another very interesting thing, because I want to talk about, because Harish suggested me to watch the film The American Fiction, which is quite interesting. If you haven't watched the film, it's a 2023 film made by Cord Jefferson. It is based on a book called Erasure by Percival Everett. It's quite interesting film. It's about an African American professor and upper class writer who is who is a writer on who's a very popular writer in and who writes on things like Greek philosophy, mythology, and everything. But whenever he goes to the bookshop, his books will be placed under African American writing, like Black writing. So he says, I don't talk anything about that in my book. It's about something else. So it's about the same thing which we can also think when we come to the question of Dalit cinema. So who has the freedom to choose to be what she or he wants, like in that case. So for instance, if a Dalit filmmaker makes a film on superheroes or Wonder Woman, or somebody makes a film on Greek mythology, or something entirely different, maybe like European Renaissance or modernity, art and painting, something which is removed from there, or somebody makes a film on astrophysics about stars, or transcending everything and about the universe which Harish was talking about in a different sense. And how would we actually call, or can we actually categorize that as Dalit cinema? Or but it is actually, yes, right, somebody from the community making a film, which that's the freedom should be there to be to make any kind of film he or she or they want to make. So that is something which I first of all would like to tell, because Dalit literature came at a moment which, as Harish rightly pointed out, with the Panthers and the 1970s movements, and it was also something in with very context specific. It emerged in Maharashtra. It also against the kind of language which was there, which was Marathi, and there was a resistance towards the kind of Marathi which was used. So, but that is not happening right now. It is kind of happening across the country from different vernacular regions. And here it is, most of them are Dalit filmmakers, but we also have other caste oppressed communities who are making films. But one of the major difference here is that it is a capitalist industry like cinema. It has to sell. And what they are doing is this question of that what is this popular cinema in itself. They are breaking all its whatever grammar, or which is already there. They are breaking that, creating new aesthetics, creating new registers of resistance. And one of the major things I like about all these filmmakers is that their films are not necessarily a resistance. It's not just a response. They offer something alternative. They offer something new. They offer something which is not just limited by the by a response, or by whatever is already there, because they are creating something exceptional, which is fascinating to watch. Or I don't think anybody has done that kind of film, and this could be, it's possible right now with all these political movements, social movements. Such kind of films can be imagined, and it can be sold, all these films. And it's the huge diaspora presence is also important, because some of these, like Kala was shown in Malaysia, had a premiere in Malaysia, or even I think Sairat had this Berlin premiere. So it's quite interesting to see that there is a network, or there is this cinema is not what it used to be, and it's also social in different ways. And it kind of breaks all these categories in itself, because so earlier what we used to do as academicians or film scholars, we would critique or we would comment. In fact, they're doing it through their films. So that is very interesting, because through the language of cinema, we see deconstructing certain things. We see them offering another perspective on cinema. So that is a difference. Even the films which we watched like last 3 weeks, I think. So we were just seeing that there's the different kinds of mode. One is a critique of what is already there, and sometimes you have to do something towards like work towards something which is which is not just bothered by that, and you offer some maybe about community or togetherness, or it could be anything. It can be, it opens up that multiplicity. So in that sense, the it is, I would say, it's very nuanced when we talk about this, and we need to actually pull it together, like put it together, that what is Dalit Film Festival. And we should always ask the question of presence, like how many people have been involved in making, or that, because that is more important, because there are people like Ilayaraja, who's been making songs, and his songs are everywhere, but then he would there are issues about the politics, or different kinds of because we see a lot of discussions on that. But through music, what he is doing is something different. He is actually changing the mode of music which was already there. His music is popular. So but then, do we have that? Because he is that big, he could do that, but do we have that possibility of having like more freedom to choose what do we want to make, or different kinds of films? And it could be political, it could be fantasy, so that that kind of will open up different narratives on the question of anti-caste cinema, I would say, and the questions on aesthetics, because that is one thing which I'm very much interested in. What are they doing with their films? It through music, through visuals, through certain like the frame which we are not, like that's not something which we are used to seeing. We would see a frame where a Dalit character would be in the corner, not taking up the whole screen, and coming up as assertive, like the way Kala comes in, or Kabali sits with his cross leg and talks about who he is. And I mean, you cannot expect me to be the one who was like whom you have seen until now. So that kind of a change is important, and to take it forward. So we actually need more discussions on that, and more multiple ways of looking at it. So yeah, so I would stop here and then listen to
Thank you, Manju, for breaking this issue. And it is very important to discuss different aspect of particular terminology and the debate around it. And as Harish and everybody has discussed, that it's an evolving stage. We are like the Dalits as a cinema, Dalit as a genre is in its evolving stage. So we are, that happy to have multiple, that aspect of, and then the perspective around it, so that we can develop more, that very solid argument around it. So but also it bring me to ask you, all of you, that question about, as Aris already touched upon, the representation and the authenticity of the Dalit themed sort of subject in Hindi cinema. But what are the problem with the Hindi Dalit as Hindi upper caste filmmaker of not representing Dalits or the caste as a issue without making it a problematic or a stereotypical? And what are the challenges that Dalits are facing, Dalit as a filmmaker are facing, to making this new and different that cinema into that already built and already powerful empire by the upper caste Swarna lobby? So yeah.
One is, of course, the political economy of the cinema industry, that it is an extremely expensive medium. Filmmaking is expensive, very, very expensive medium, and you cannot simply there enter there and make a film. Or even a normal film making will require crores of rupees. And then, of course, after that, there is a marketing of the film and the exhibition of that cinema. So it is a very, very expensive medium, and probably you need that kind of a capital to make a film and release that on screen. Probably we do not have the producers which can make such they can take such an initiative and release it at the broader level. And therefore at the production level it starts, that who will fund the film. Though you have a great idea, though you have a fantastic screenplay and a script, and you have a great artist, like for that matter, but you need to have a risk taker who will produce that film and release it at the end. So probably it started at the very beginning. The film making process is therefore a capital incentive process, and where we do not have many film producers which can take up a call to make a film on a Dalit question. But though those limitations are there, but as I said, in last 10 years, we have seen films made by non-Dalits which are sincere and somehow sensitive vis-a-vis the Dalit question, like Newton or Guddu Rangila or Shamshera, very big film, 350 crores film. Ranbir Kapoor did the Dalit protagonist in that film, or recently Chamkila, or even for that matter, Manji. So these films are not made by Dalit filmmakers. They are made by the social elites. They are seasoned filmmakers. But if you see the protagonist, he is often a Dalit protagonist. The only two major films in Hindi which are made by Dalit filmmakers is Masan and Jhund. These are the two major filmmakers. Again, it has a big budget allocation and it was commercially hit also. But rest of the films, as I said, Newton, Guddu Rangila, Manjhi, Shamshera, Bhir, Chamkila, the Article 13, again, a very important film in Hindi, which is around the Dalit question. So you'll find that though these films are not made by Dalit filmmakers, but there is some kind of a political sensitivity and a capacity to promote a Dalit protagonist on screen. So this is a kind of a new thing, and therefore probably it will be too much of an expectation that in the non-Dalit filmmakers, the social elites filmmaker will also toe the political line of the Dalit consciousness. I think that will be too much. I think this is just a beginning where there is a Dalit protagonist on screen, which is of course not a typical Dalit political hero, but he is there as a representative of the Dalit consciousness, or for that matter, like in Article 50, Article 13, there is a character who is Ambedkarite, who is a revolutionary and also taking a call against the political system. So that kind of imaginations are very much coming in a bigger way. And therefore, probably this idea that Dalit artists that are creating art probably are not conscious about they will not be conscious about Dalit sensibilities, for that matter, Raja, or a very great lyricist Shailendra in Hindi cinema. Great name, and if you listen to their songs, it is awesome. So though they are present, but probably they lack what you call a Dalit sensitivity, the Dalit political consciousness, the larger arrival of what we call an Ambedkarite ethical or its aesthetics, for that matter. And then there are filmmakers who are Dalits and also creating an art. Paranjit is a better example of that. So of course there is a division that can a Dalit also escapes the what they call the social location. Shailendra did that, Raja did that. They created wonderful artistic setup, but in that escape, in that transcendence, in that absence of the location, there is no Dalit, there is no caste consciousness, there is no anti-caste rhetoric, there is no politics in that. Whereas those Dalit artists who are located in their social location and wanted to make an educational film, for that matter, I will suggest that entertainment and education is there in Paranjit's film. That it is not just entertaining, but it is also emancipatory and educating the audience about a new version of the storytelling. That story can be told on this way. So probably the idea of a Dalit cinema is based on its ideological input rather than the artist. As I said, that there were artists who were Dalits. Raja and Shailendra both were Dalits, but they're absent of an ideological engagement with the Dalit question. And therefore, probably what makes a Dalit cinema is its ideological imprints, its philosophy, its concern about anti-caste elements, and the larger emancipatory and radical approach to deal with any narrative. If that is absent, it is not a Dalit cinema. It is like any other fashionable narrative, any other vogue film. Which we cannot call a Dalit cinema. Dalit cinema need an ideological imprint, which is about liberation, which is about alternative, which is about resistance. If that elements are not there, it will not be called a Dalit cinema.
Yeah. So yeah, in that sense, it's not necessary, as Harish is suggesting, that it has to be someone from the Dalit community to narrate. It should be more of a ideological positioning of a director about the Dalit subjectivity and other subject related to Dalits. So I think we are already that out of time, but I would just ask one or maybe two last questions so that we can just wrap up this discussion. So like if Manju, as he has the expertise in the Malayalam cinema, so I would just want to ask that what are the that how the regional cinema apart from the Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and then the Hindi, how the other regional cinema like Malayalam cinema is responding to the very idea of this Dalit genre or the Dalit cinema and to the subject related to Dalits and the caste issue. So what is the scenario in the Malayalam cinema, if you can answer? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Neeraj, for that question. So Malayalam cinema has a different take, which is which actually Malayalam cinema has this, it claims its lineage in all this new cinemas, which from the 1970s, 80s. So there would be always this stories about, which is not necessarily the stories on Dalits, but they will be always stories about this, how the upper castes, or in Kerala, the dominant caste, one of the dominant castes is Nair community, how they have lost their earlier privileges and everything, and then there is a shift. So what the usual thing is that there would be this Dalit subjectivities would be always in the margins, or the usual way the all the other films have looked at it, but there were also films which had Dalit protagonists and discussions on that. And quite recently, there is a shift which happened in Malayalam cinema with the shift in technology and a lot of new people coming in. And so the way which the kind of in Tamil, what we see is there is an anti-caste presence. A lot of filmmakers are making like very interesting films, as Harish was talking about, like these questions on liberation and anti-caste assertion and liberatory films, and they are also quite vocal in the public platform. In Kerala, it's a different the emergence is largely about this women collective, where the question of caste was kind of silent, but these days there are discussions on that. For instance, when the issue about PK Rossi came out, so PK Rossi is the first female heroine of first female actor of Malayalam cinema, who's also a Dalit woman. So it's quite interesting how her history kind of reclaimed by not only by cinema, but it's largely by the Dalit and Dalit Bahujan community. So it's through their continuous articulations and political mobilizations and everything. So her presence is something which is reclaimed. So the question of caste will be dealt in a very nuanced way, not necessarily as an explicit way in Malayalam cinema, but because of the kind of things which are happening in Tamil or Marathi. So especially like major influences Tamil, because a lot of Malayalis watch Tamil cinema because it's kind of mutually understandable language. So it's people watch a lot. So the influence we can see, especially in terms of rap, like there are now Dalit rappers in Malayalam cinema, and there are filmmakers like who are emerging, or there are also already like people like Biju who have been making films, but which are not this like big popular films, but which are quite interesting films which deal with the questions on Dalit lives. But there is no genre of anti-caste cinema as such, or Dalit cinema. Like forget about Dalit cinema. There is no concept of anti-caste cinema that is there. But then now it has been there as an underlying. So now underlying in almost every story. So what they do is it comes in multiple ways. So not necessarily in terms of like in terms of Dalit assertions, but we can actually see a lot of nuanced portrayals of family life, broken families, and how they kind of deal with their life. It could be sometimes a fisherman community, and how they deal with the caste uh, the caste hegemony which is operative in the locality. So which might not be the major, it will be the underlying thing in the film, but it would be mostly about the family story and how these things are affecting. So I would see it as also as something of the influence which we have, especially with people like Ranjit. So Ranjit is, I think, producing a Malayalam film which is going to come out, I think. So the producing element is very important, because Malayalam cinema, there is a shift, because we have another difference in Malayalam is that there is a new bunch of Muslim filmmakers who are very politically conscious, who are also there, who make a lot of films with like taking up Dalit issues or taking up other oppressed community issues, also Islamophobia and all these things within the narrative. So that is a major change in Malayalam cinema. But the larger Dalit presence is not there like the way which is in Tamil. So it's largely about all the other things. But yeah, you don't have this kind of a powerful movement in Kerala. Maybe it's also because of the left, uh, the narrative, or the kind of political position where we would have where you would actually deal with these things, not necessarily explicitly, but it's not quite radical. So which is not even comparable to what is happening in Tamil, which is really powerful. So yeah, that is something which
Yeah,
uh,
that's a very great
yeah.
observation that Manju you made about the Malayalam cinema, that how because of the popular and very prevalent Marxist movement in there, so how they have that erased the caste issue, caste as a issue. Like similarly, like Harris pointed out in the Indian Golden Age cinema and the parallel cinema as well, how the caste issue has been sidelined with the other, the other binary of poor versus rich and other sort of things. So yeah, and so I would ask last and final question for the discussion to everybody about the, that as we uh, talk about the Dalit theme films and the future and the present, but I just want to know the future trajectory of the Dalit theme films, and what are the trends that are emerging at the current stage, and what opportunities exist for new voices and stories. How can the industry support and the nurture films that address caste issue? So these are the issues which has been that addressed by few of you in the previous discussion, but uh, like it's more about the future trajectory and the what kind of the stories that people are that want to actually see on the screen and very keen to. And so yeah.
Shall I?
Yes, Aris, please.
Right. No, of course, we are not the fortune tellers that we know that what is going to happen in the future. That's totally a very difficult question. But probably the media world has now exploded so much, and cinema is just a small, tiny part of it. Probably we also need to think that beyond cinema, the media experiences that are now going up, I think how one has to contribute in that space. Like for matter, the OTT channels and the new wave cinema that now they are coming up with, and how they are producing films, how they are basically engaging with filmmakers, and what is the kind of a larger grammar of how one can release their films on OTT platforms. I think that is one space which I think we need to think. Further, the social media, like the platforms like Instagram, which are extremely influential in kind of curating young people's mind now. And therefore, not and there are huge audience of these new technologies which are now coming up. Further, the gaming technology which is now coming up, and probably my next generation is not watching cinema at all. They are not even watching television. They are mainly in the gaming zone, and they are playing games and doing something extraordinary with that media output. I think more than cinema as a very influential and powerful medium that connects with the audience, I think the world is changing in a very rapid manner. Uh, Already, the OTT platform has disturbed the cinema going experiences, and very few people are now going to the theaters to watch cinema, and mostly our cinematic experiences are limited to television and our laptops. And further, the social media experience, as I said, Instagram and YouTube Reels and multiple other, these are the new avenues where people are engaging more to get entertainment. And later on, of course, this new metaverse called gaming zones, which basically transforms you into a different zone altogether. That is the future of entertainment. And therefore, probably in those zones, we are still not there at all. Though our presence is now emerging and and kind of expanding in cinema in three or four major industries. But I think the industry is not only there. I think the industry expanding to multiple other zones, and there I think there is a need of creativity, innovation, and participation. We do not have a clear a plan of action that what Dalit filmmakers and artists and intellectuals like you should do to engage with the new format. But there is a possibility that artists, filmmakers, and even the viewers are now ready for a new kind of an experience and narrative telling. The way the narratives were told to us for such a long time, they were all fictional, they were all populist, they were all illogical, surreal, and all what they in Hindi we call the masala cladded. I think there is a kind of a stoppage to that because of the OTT platform, and a more serious, innovative, creative, and intellectual content is now coming for the audience, and that is a kind of a positive take that our stories have that kind of a very deep human connect. It is a story which are not been told to the greater audience till date, and we have this kind of a larger emancipatory and radical intellectual ideas in our core, and therefore those ideas should be told, and therefore we can expect that the upcoming filmmakers will not hesitate to engage with the Dalit and Adivasi question and retell their stories in a fascinating manner. That possibility is there, but again, as I said, this is a limited possibilities. We need to understand that media is completely overhauling now. It is completely changing with a very different space together. We also need to be a little futuristic in when we are making plans for the future of the Dalit representation.
Yeah, Manju, if you would like to.
Yeah, so it's very it's very like right now it's very what the like it's not the moment to talk or to predict what will happen of Dalit themed films, because we just witnessed some amazing films and a shift through multiple things. It is technology and the investment in, like, we have now producers who are involved in multiple ventures, not necessarily just filmmaking. Through, like, for instance, Ranjit has a publication house. He's also involved in other cultural activities. So that kind of, like, so it's like I don't want to just talk only about what is like about cinema as such, but what is the possibility of this anti-caste movement? How can we take it forward through these cultural forms? It could be films, it could be art, like literature, performance, and through multiple investments or engagements, discussions, and discourse. So that is one way of looking at it. And secondly, to have stories which are which, as I said, it could be multiple. Like, it could open up different possibilities, not necessarily one way of looking at what is Dalit life, because Dalit life is, like, actually it's colorful, it's wonderful. Like, it has resistance, it has everyday struggles, it has joy, and all these should come in multiple ways, not necessarily one way of looking at it. So that is something which I, as a spectator, would like to see from these kind of films. And how to support these films, one of the ways is to uh, there are, like, different levels at it. One would be to watch or engage and have discussions on that. And secondly, at the level of support in terms of material or investment, like somebody like Ranjit is investing on so many new filmmakers who come from Dalit communities and struggle to make films. And but see, look at somebody like Mari Selvaraj. When he came, Ranjit actually produced a film. Then Mari Selvaraj went on to become a big director, and he's getting quite a lot of opportunities, and he's having, like, big producers. So that is a way to go, and to have also. So Ranjit is also now investing in distribution, which was not there before. So different kind of people or different investments at different, like, it could be production or distribution or publicity, or because we have now, as Harish was telling, the next generation is Instagram generation, who do not want to watch anything more than maybe like 30 seconds, or like it's very short. They have sometimes attention span is very less. So what do we do with that kind of a shift? It's not necessarily just what is happening with anti-caste films, but in media as such. So there are changes which are going on. So how do we engage with these questions? Because we have now like wonderful artists who create now reels on these, like for instance with anti-caste images, and changing the way art was perceived before. So what do we do with all these things? So I always feel Dalits have always engaged with media um, uh, for liberation, for emancipation, and also to come up with new and emancipatory ideas, and that has been there, because it's there with print, it's there with films, it's there with now all the new media, Facebook or Twitter, and the way the oppressed communities are using it is it's quite fascinating. So in that sense, there is a future, and which might not be the way, like once, if we like the way we look at it right now, it is changing constantly. So it has a lot of possibilities. And one thing I just want to add is that, as like to add on to your previous question on the regional cinema and caste question. So one of the things in Malayalam cinema, what we see is that now caste is told from the point of view of the oppressor. That is quite fascinating in Malayalam cinema, because you would see how what they go through, and all the, like, because they torment people, what is their mental struggles and everything. So it's a different way of critiquing the whole narrative. Like you would see somebody who would be very angry, or somebody who's, but that is all caste. But the way you will, like, it's through a psychoanalytical mode you will analyze those kind of films. So there are multiple things which are happening in industries. So that is a possibility. And yeah, we would want to watch more liberatory films, and films which at once affect the other. Like even if an oppressor watches it, it should touch them. To That is cinema, right? So cinema should not contain within itself. It should be generative. It should always move the other when they watch it. So I mean, that should be the future of anti-caste cinema, I would say. Yeah, thank you so much.
Indeed. Amit, you would like to add something?
Yes, yes. I'll go what Harish sir have like added, like it's a capital intensive, like we don't have any producer. And but in the similar way, we do at one time we were not educated, but we have produced the Dalit literature. We have to be optimistic. If we can produce Dalit literature and established as a major genre, we can also like produce movies, and in various pockets they are producing. And at the same time, sir was also talking about the how the in the recent time, because there is a large market who is interesting in like the diversity, because at one time the people were like fed up with the like the Hindi cinema content, and they shifted towards the Jurassic Park, Anaconda, they through CDs and all. And as we see, like they want diversity. That's why they are shifting towards the Hindi cinema audience, are shifting towards the Malayalam cinema. They are watching the Tamil cinema. So diversity as a question, and it can be like seen as a potent this market. That is why we are witnessing the people. Anubhav Sinha is making Article 19, but we have the Prakash Jha has made the Arakshan, but we have also see how these people have like diluted the question of caste. Like they have shown the optimism in the Gandhian politics and the pessimism in the radical Ambedkarite politics, in terms of if you see the the Article 19, where like Chandrasekhan inspired character is killed. So we have to see, and at the same time there is a market, large market, and we have to see seek the help of the government, because directly or indirectly government have like in the 70s, in the 80s, they have produce so many movies. In a similar way, they can also like produce, support the young director from who has graduated from NSD, FTII. These are the things can bring change, and it's the responsibility of the state. And we have Dalits always believes in the institution, so we have to show our I would say the trust on the institution, and we have to try the uh, democratize the institution by like making the demands for extended the affirmative action to the cinema industry as well. This is one thing we can do and make the claim in each and every institution, and these things collectively will bring the change in the content, the Dalit cinema diversity in the, and it will deal every question, I would like think. And I am very optimistic for the future, and it has a like bright future. We could when Harish Wankhede sir have wrote the article in 2013, who would have imagined that this kind of a discussion will be happening in the 10 in a within a decade. So it is happening, and we have to be optimistic. We have to make a major claim that so everybody can contribute for diversifying the context and making the Dalit cinema as, and at the same time we should not fall in the trap of making the Dalit cinema as a ghetto cinema. So this thing should be kept in mind. Oh, and thank you, Neeraj. I think I have tried my best to answer your question.
No. Indeed, you have answered, and as all of you have, that pointed out very crucial points about the diversity, the authenticity, and how we can represent our characters on the screen. And as Manju also pointed out, that the multiplicity in the content should be there, not as a that singular art narrative about the sorrow and the pain of the Dalit life world, but also the the other aspect of the Dalit world should be shown on the screen. And also we are grateful to Haris for that has started this initiative long ago of having this sort of discussion, and that's why we are here. And also this discussion, we are that we are hopeful that this discussion would go longer than this. And yeah, and also like the how we can also support the creators and the producers. So as Manju also pointed out, that how the ecosystem need to be created so that the budding artists from the Dalit community can that can get that direction, advice, and sense of fraternity among the artist community. So yeah, these are the few things that we can that always talk about and then have further. So as we bring this panel discussion and our online film festival to a close, I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to all of you who have joined to us over the past few days. And this festival has been a remarkable journey for me and for many others, I would that imagine. And then also your engagement and support for the has been also truly unwavering and heartwarming. So, and we have had an honor of screening multiple films and outstanding films by the Dalit filmmakers, each shedding light on the vital narratives and the perspectives. So these films have not only entertained us, and also we have discussed in the previous session that our films is Dalit films, like the films by the Dalit filmmakers, are not only to entertain but also to disturb in some sort of the manner. Like as Manju said, that it should move people when they then when they leave cinema hall. So these films have also not only entertained but also sparked some sort of conversation about the Dalit experiences and the power of cinema to drive social change, or towards at least that radical transformation. So, and also the today's panel discussion on the present and the future of Dalit and anti-caste, or the anti-caste themed films in India, has been a fitting conclusion of to our festival. So I extend my sincere thanks to our distinguished panelists for their invaluable insights, and to our audience for their active participation and thought-provoking, that listening to our discussion.
I think somebody also need to thank you for initiating this idea, working so hard to connect so many good people, curating the idea of cinema festival. I think this is a tremendous job. I think we from our side, I must congratulate you for doing this wonderful job. And we hope that more such festivals will be incoming now, and more intellectuals and institutions will take cognizance of this festival, and we will build a better ecosystem to kind of spread our voices to different parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Harish. And I
Yeah,
also like, yeah,
Thank you, Jevin, for organizing such wonderful film festival. Hope in future we would also like think in a similar way and organize where we are. So thank you, Neeraj and everyone.
mm,
yeah, thanks, Neeraj. Also, yeah, Harish added about the bringing the films together and having these people. One of the things I should congratulate you for is also the way you carried all the discussions. I watched all the discussions, and it was really fascinating. Also with the filmmakers, it's actually important to bring in their perspectives of making films and what they went through and what are their ways of making or their aesthetic expressions. So that is something which we need to also take forward and also have more of such initiatives. So yeah, thank you for putting it together, and congratulations on this success. So yeah, looking forward to more such events, and yeah, that's it. Thank
thank,
you.
thank you, Manju. And at the end, I would also like to thank our organizing and the technical team, Alex, Jose, and the Bonington Gallery, and the Post-Colonial Study Center, and Nottingham Trent University for their tireless, the partnership of organizing this event and behind the scene of their efforts behind the scenes. So, yeah. And also, as we that close this chapter, let's carry forward this conversation we have had and the powerful stories we have experienced through the films and the discussion. So let us continue to support our Dalit filmmakers and advocate for a more inclusive and equitable film industry. So thank you all again for this transformative experiences. We look forward to your continued support and hope to see you in the future events. Thank you so much, everybody.